Hey, what's up and hello. This is the Chris Nicole bringing you my views on life, love, and the world of entertainment through my eyes. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on what time you are watching this live. Hello, crew. Hope all is well. Make sure you hit the likety like button on the way in. And this is going to be my review on Monster, the Ed Gein story. So, I have watched all the monsters. I believe I reviewed all the monsters on my actual channel. This is the third season, okay? The first season was with Jeffrey Dahmer. The second season was with the Menendez brothers. And this is the third season. If I had to rate this, it would be a hell no. And I'm going to get to why. However, because I like balance, the Libra in me, I'm going to say something good first. Great cinematography. Great cinematography. But it should be great cinematography because it's Ryan Murphy. It's a Ryan Murphy production, okay? Ryan Murphy's name and money should give you amazing cinematography, all right? So with that, compared to season 1 and season 2, you actually had a lot of truth mixed in with fiction. Jeffrey Dahmer, like you actually had his actual victims being played out, as well as the Menendez brothers. And there were certain elements in the actual writing that were true from the cases, the people. So yes, definitely. However, when I did my research with Ed Gein, a lot of this is not factual, which made me wonder why they wanted to use this particular guy. Now, based on just some basic information, Ed Gein was a SK. Y'all know what SK is. He was a SK that was born in 1906, all right, in Wisconsin. Another Wisconsin, because of course we know Jeffrey Dahmer was also in Wisconsin too. I don't know what's going on up there, but yeah. So with that, he was born in 1906. I'm going to assume that maybe there just isn't enough information. I don't know, but maybe there wasn't enough information, so they had to use their imagination. But they hit the mark for me. And the reason why they hit the mark for me was it was all over the place. It was all over the place. I could not, once you paid attention to one thing and you thought you were getting into the groove of that story, it bounced to a whole nother story, a whole nother setting. And I was trying to figure out, why are we here? Why are we here and what is the purpose? So starting off, too many characters for me to focus on. I feel like at times Ed Gein got lost in his own story. We had too many people from his fake love interest in Adeline. And again, let me say spoiler alerts, because I may say some things that are going to be spoiler alerts. So just to let you know, with Adeline, and then you had the situation with the woman who was the super duper psycho villain in Germany. And then you had all of the directors and all of the so-called movies that apparently used Ed Gein's story to profit off of, which from my understanding, we don't necessarily know if that was accurate or not. But it literally would be where we would be with Ed Gein. And then all of a sudden, when we're really trying to focus on him, who's supposed to be the main character, the next thing you know, we're hearing people speaking German. And I'm trying to figure out why we're over here. and then there's chaos over there, and then it bounced back to Ed Gein, and then the next thing you know, we're with a film or someone sitting down with someone explaining a psycho and how this film director now wants to create a movie based off of this psycho, hence the movie Psycho. So I just felt like they had too many characters for us to focus on. Ed's story got lost. Ed's story, as far as his family, extremely got lost. Throughout this whole movie, we see his mother in the beginning. In my opinion, his mother should have been a part of the season much longer than she was, as well as his brother, because in the series, they make it seem like Ed is responsible for his brother, when that is also not the case in real life. So why they couldn't use his brother for a longer period of time to see the contrast and the difference of what his brother is or was versus Ed, I don't know. I don't know why they did not actually use that. I don't know why they didn't use that. I just feel like at a certain point, his brother's gone, his mother's gone, and we just have Ed. And he apparently doesn't have any cousins. He doesn't have any aunts or uncles. We're just writing this out with Ed. And a lot of it was no dialogue sometimes, or very small dialogue, or literally having, voices of the mother, and the mother isn't there. It is not as engaging, I will say, as his other previous seasons. Ryan Murphy, from my understanding, did not write this. Ryan Murphy is just the name to attach it to because he actually got the deal for this. It was not written by him. I just feel like the writing was not good and the directing wasn't good either. It was literally a mess. A mess. Like when I tell you a pot of gumbo, and it just had a little bit of everything. And we're, I guess, supposed to be intrigued and put the pieces together. And I literally a couple of times just got out of it so much to where I was just like, what's the point of this at this point? And then we're not going to even get into the details of some of these scenes that were just so cringeworthy that I don't know if we necessarily needed to see those scenes to kind of give its purpose. There could have been a more creative way versus the vulgar way that they gave it to us, but they did. And I mean, it is what it is. But another thing that I have an issue with is we don't really see Ed Gein age at all until he's caught. We don't see him age at all. And what I found out is that this man literally was over 50 by the time they finally arrested him. That should have been something that should have been something that would have been like amazing to see, that this was a guy who was close to senior citizen, because you don't really find that many SKs at that age, which is why I guess they're speculating that he may have unalived more people, because apparently he only claimed he unalived 2 people. The rest he claimed he dug up. But you typically don't see that many SKs starting off much older. So I guess that's why they're speculating that he did way more. They just can't figure it out. But he didn't get caught until after he was 50 years old. So it's quite interesting that that's not really expressed in this series. I mean, honestly, by the time we see Ed in the beginning of this series till when he finally got caught, he looks the same age. He looks exactly the same age. To me, it didn't really feel like that much of a time lapse between all of that happening. Yeah. So, and one thing I will say is that the scene where he finally does get caught, now apparently that is a true situation. The son, him being a deputy sheriff, all of that allegedly is true. But another thing is trying to put too many storylines or just too many storylines, too many plots in the actual movie. Again, I don't know why we needed to have Alfred Hitchcock. Sorry, Alfred Hitchcock. You guys, y'all know, sorry, especially after work, child. Alfred Hitchcock. I don't know why we needed to have him in this movie. I don't know why we needed to have Toby, who is the originator of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and his story in this movie. I don't know why we needed to have them showing the Silence of the Lamb scenes in this movie. I don't understand why they had to show that, and they showed too much of it, which tells me they felt like they didn't have enough story on Ed Gein. So if that's the case, why do it? Why do it? Because he got lost in his own story. It was like they wanted us to see how other people viewed him versus what we needed to know about him and why we should be interested in him. Um, I felt like this was the first monster where the lead wasn't that important. Like we were better off learning about just the myth of, you know what I'm saying, the legacy or the story of Ed Gein without showing us Ed Gein by looking at all of these directors, looking at all of these people who claim to have been so-called influenced by this Ed Gein story. You know, it just to me seems like the writer really got lost on what the purpose was. Let me see. Oh, hey, you guys. Hey, D. Hey, Leo. Hey, Megan, we could have seen more of his grave digging crimes and what he did with them. They could have shown his court cases play out. They could have, versus us seeing all of these other stories. Now, I understood them actually showing us the lady that was in Germany. I can't even call her a lady, but the villain that was in Germany. If you notice that every time he was potentially about to unalive someone, she would pop up in his vision or whatever the case may be, which I thought was pretty cool because then it's kind of like, okay, well, every time you see her, he's about to do something. But yeah, like we could have seen way more about him. And then when they did show us the grave stuff, it was a little too much for me. It was to the point where it was getting uncomfortable. And the problem is that it didn't play out gradually. So we first see, spoiler alerts again, we first see that he went to the grave to dig up his mother, but he couldn't. So then all of a sudden he claims he hears his mother, and his mother says, dig up the heifer, harlot next to me. And he ends up digging that person up, and I guess trying to make it seem like that is his mother. Okay. I personally feel like it's okay. So it starts there. And of course, he has this body in the home, thinking, he's speaking to it like that's his mom, even having his girlfriend literally go up there and so-called talk to her and everything. But I feel like if we would have seen a gradual process of how it went from there to him getting more detailed or more sick with what he was doing with those, corpse that he got, then it made sense when he got to the sickest part towards the end, if you guys know what I mean. I can't even say that on here, even if I wanted to. But I don't feel like they showed us a gradual development of that. It was just like, okay, this one here is gonna play my mother. The next thing you know, he went completely haywire with the other ones. So that was just weird. Um, it was very weird. And then as far as the court cases or the actual sheriff that was speaking to him about, what he did. Interesting enough, I don't understand the sheriff and the police situation either. And I let me know if I missed something. But when they first went to him and asked him about the first lady at the bar that he unalived, when they went to him to ask him questions about it, he said, oh yeah, my mother is sick. And they was like, oh, she's been sick lately, right? He was like, yeah, I have to make sure that she's okay. I understand it's a small town, but I mean, even in small towns, because it's so small, word travels fast. How did they not know that she was already gone? That threw me off, that the sheriff of the town did not know that his mother was already gone. So that was interesting to me. And I felt like that was a miss in the writing, because then, of course, at the end, when they catch him, they're screaming at him and they're like, your mother, you know what I'm saying, is gone. Like, your mother is gone. That was a missed opportunity in the story for me. Because let's just say if they were naive and didn't know that she passed, could there not been a moment that they ended up finding out that she passed, and the sheriff said, didn't he say he was just taking care of his mother? That could have, developed, or they could have like looked into him even more. It just, again, for me, you guys, the writing, it was all over the place. It was really all over the place. It just did not make any sense. And I feel like, I definitely don't think this was a rush job. I think they had opportunities, but I think this was more about the influence of Ed Gein versus his own story. That's what it seemed like to me. It seemed like the influence that this man brought to apparently influence a lot of filmmakers and TV makers, or, I'm saying, writers, or whatever the case may be. That to me is what this story was about. The people who were influenced by his story and was able to make millions off of it versus him. Because his story with his mother was quite interesting. The mother was also off her rocker. I wouldn't even be surprised if it was hereditary. You know what I mean? And she ended up giving it to him, because that scene in the beginning and what he was doing, I'm saying, with her own, braziers and everything, and how she tells him that, women are sin, women are evil, don't you ever deal with a woman. And I was like, well, how the heck did you, what do you expect? Like, how did he get here is with a man and a woman? But she was truly trying to manipulate, influence, control her kids to where she did not even want them to have a life. I wish they would have dug much more deeper into that. And again, I don't know if this is necessarily true or not, but if you are going to put fictional things in here, just develop them more to where we could. This was the most intriguing part for me, is his relationship with her. You know what I mean? And how she had a hold on him, and also primarily had a hold on him maybe because he was, his mental health was not there. But that was the story right there. And his brother, and maybe even seeing at one point him and his brother in the house with the mother, and the brother finally having enough and leaving. And Ed is still there. We start off with, it's just Ed and the mom, and we hear about the brother, And then we finally see the brother and the brother saying, look, I'm about to get married. Like, I think we should have saw that contrast, and we should have saw much more of Ed's family dynamic. We should have saw it. So that would have explained even more who he was. But we didn't. We did not. We also got this fake story crazy love story between Ed and Adeline, which apparently was fiction also. And I guess I would have appreciated more if once she found that corpse in the room, that she would have either gotten so, of course, disgusted and been like, I may be into weird things, but not this. I think I would have appreciated more if she sat up there and said, I'm done. And even if he had unalived her, or even if she was able to get away without him unaliving her, but for her to turn around and almost get turned on by it, and then stay there so she can try to possibly gain a career out of it, and then turn around and try to get some fame off of it. It was weird. It was weird. I was just like, where are we going with this? And I also feel like they forgot what times we were in. This was the World War II era, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. I am confused as to what is going on. I am confused as to what's going on. The Adeline, if they really would have maybe developed this on the family of Ed versus that, it would have been much better. Also, the trans storyline. And I would like to know if I have any listeners who are trans, because I want to know what you guys think about this story and how they actually developed that story. See, it was almost coming across as if Ed was intrigued about being trans. At least that's the way that I was seeing it, that he was intrigued by it. And it almost, to me, kind of played badly, as if it was trying to tie that, the trans thing and him, you know what I'm saying, having these thoughts of wanting to unalive people and doing these things, almost went hand in hand. And I don't know. I need answers on how people feel about that, because we know as of late there have been certain news stories and things like that about mass, pow pows, or whatever the case may be. And there have been some that they said it was by a trans person, right? I want to know what people think. Now, they try to clean it up at the end, but again, a whole nother storyline, plot line, where I was just like, why have this in here? Because again, I don't even think that was something that they had in Ed's files. Like, I think I looked that up the night when I was done, and they said there's no record of him even thinking about that. So again, why have it in the show? Why have it there? And this is why I said I feel like the writer just ran out of ideas, ran out of story, and then decided that, they were just going to create their own plots and stuff. So that apparently that whole transsexual thing for Ed was a myth. There's apparently no truth to that. But they wanted to add it in there, and they added it in there for a very long time. The first interaction about him learning about that was with Adeline, I want to say in the first couple of episodes, and it continues. It continues throughout the whole entire season, the season, and even like literally almost the last episode. So it definitely was just like, where are we getting this? Like, what is the purpose? because I'm all for a story that's going to give me purpose and it's going to let me follow through, and I'm going to be able to see the story from the beginning, the middle, the end. But at the end of the day, a lot of these storylines to me didn't wrap up into me understanding Ed at all, or even what the writer wanted. And that's problematic. Now, of course, Monster is a hit on Netflix, so it definitely did its numbers. But this was the first one where I was lost in the sauce. Hey, Miss T, did you watch the show? And please let me know what you think. Yeah, it definitely. Okay, so you agree with me, girl. Yeah, it went off the rails. It was a mess. I was just like, oh man, like it's never done this before. So, and I also don't understand, and maybe this is the only thing I could think of. Just like, if I'm not mistaken, the Menendez, or was it Dahmer? I can't remember. But I believe at the end or towards the end, they always want to show us another infamous or famous SK story in the middle of this season. And for the life of me, because I think they did, what's his name, John Gracie or someone like that before. They did John Gracie, if I'm not mistaken, where they showed him in either Dahmer or Menendez, which made me think that was going to be the next monster, but it wasn't. This time they showed us Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy was highlighted in this season, but that's not the next monster. So only logical thing I can think of is with Ted Bundy, it made sense to show him because they were trying to say he was in the same, I guess, SK family as in Ed Gein, meaning that they both had an issue with bodies, to be nice about it, and what they did with bodies. So maybe that, especially, I mean, female bodies. So maybe that's the reason why they showed it. But Ted Bundy's not the next monster. It's someone named Lizzie who's the next monster. But I'm thinking, like, if you're going to show us that, why not? That would be great promotion for your next monster. So yeah, the beginning was good, but around episode 6 or 7, yikes. Yeah, I mean, I think it went off the rails once the mother was gone. They should have given his family dynamic more. They should have given his family dynamic more and seen the difference between the brother and him. Maybe even allowed us to see what they were like as a family together with the father. Now we see somewhere in the middle where they show the father getting kicked out of the house. You know what I'm saying? So yes, that is true. That is true, Miss T, that a lot of it was fictional. It's not accurate. And I think that's the difference between the Dahmer and the Menendez. See, when you're thinking about with Dahmer and Menendez, you have so much information. You have, I mean, that the cases and the documentaries and like the interviews with Dahmer and Menendez, you have so much material to work with for writing. You have so much material. I don't know how much material they could possibly have with Ed Gein. I don't know. But I feel like they could, because you can pull up his name and people have written books on him and things like that. So I don't know what missed the mark with this one. But definitely Jeffrey Dahmer and the Menendez brothers, we know everything in those seasons weren't 100% true, but there was enough truth from the cases and things that happened. That's what made it very intriguing and so well put together. So exactly. If you listen to my actual live from the beginning, Miss T, I said that. And I know you always do replay gang, and I appreciate you, but yeah, I said that. Talking about Psycho multiple times, talking about how people actually, now one thing about it is, yes, Alfred Hitchcock did change the whole trajectory or just to change the whole view of horror. Like, he is the reason why we can have a monster on TV today. Because before Alfred Hitchcock, like, no one would dare do something like that. It was repulsive and just sick to do something like that at that time. And then people got almost like a taste for it, and then it just went crazy. Yes, I get it. But why do we have to have that in Ed Gein's story? Why do we have to have it in his story? And then we went to Toby, who did Texas Chainsaw. Why do we need to have him? Why do we need to have him in Montgomery Ward's in that scene? There's no reason for it. Every time I thought I was getting a hint of Ed, they took me out of it by giving me another story within a story and a plot or a storyline that really wasn't needed. The way they portrayed one of his victims, Bernice, disgusted me. They did not have to in relationship. He was just in the store buying antifreeze and her. Right. Thank you, Megan, because I was going to get into that. Thank you. This specific monster was overly, you know what, freaky tail eyes, if you know what I mean. Overly X-alized, if I can say it that way, where it didn't even make sense to put it in there. It just seems like the writer wanted it in there. You know what I mean? That's what it was. The writer wanted it in there, but it just didn't make sense to have it in there. And most of the time I was like, what is the purpose of this scene? Why do we need to see this part of this scene? Like with Bernice, and Bernice, pretty much throwing herself at him. And in that situation, you know what I mean? And the whole, him willing to do whatever at that point just so he can have some lingerie. I'm telling y'all, I was just like, I don't know the mindset. I don't know the purpose of this at this point. I don't understand the purpose. And then the ending, when he actually is sent to a mental hospital and they finally tell him what he has. They said he has schizophrenia, and they, pretty much, because he passed in a mental institute. Because with Mary, even though he admitted to the bartender Mary, even though he admitted to unaliving her, they pretty much said, well, he's insane, so we can't do anything. And then, of course, with Bernice, they just said, okay, we'll put him in a mental institution for the rest of his life. But then in the end, when he was crying about his, condition and everything else, and then how, I guess, when he had passed or whatever, like they was trying to make it seem like there was a party for him and him going down in a wheelchair and all of this stuff. And then he sees his mom, and his mom was, like, I'm proud of you. Like you've given us the Gein name. Like, I'm proud of you. Like you have influenced so many people. And I was like, what the heck is this? Like, this man unalive people. And I don't even know if he was really remorseful. This is their interpretation of it. And let's be clear, I don't think just because you're a schizophrenic, that means that you will unalive people. Now, I have heard that there is a lot of schizophrenics, if not careful, they will potentially unalive themselves. But I feel like there was definitely something else there going on with him, more than being a schizophrenic, for him to unalive people. So, child, let me tell you something. I hope they get it together for the next monster, because for me, everything was wrong about this. Too many characters, a movie within a movie, too much freaky tales for no reason, too much sickness for no reason. Some of this stuff was so repulsive. I was like, why is it on here? Why can't we have a hint of it? Why can't you just make the scene to where you're potentially hinting at that's what he's going to do, but we don't have to see it. There was definitely a scene where he had one of those bodies there, and I took it as he's about to do something freaky with that body, but they didn't show it. The fact that they wanted to show us at a certain point, I was like, I just don't understand this. I don't understand. And are we that desensitized where people are okay with watching this? I don't know. It's supposed to be like dressing up like that and doing those things in women's clothes, but behind the door, that was crazy. Yeah, behind the door was crazy. I don't know if they have proof that he did anything like that. Um, you know what I mean? Like, you know, I don't know. This seemed like a dark, twisted fantasy type of thing going on. So, like at the end, they wanted us to feel sympathy for Ed. It seemed like it to me. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Do you guys feel like at the end they wanted us to kind of have some type of sympathy for him? Because I didn't. I sure as hell didn't. You have people who get diagnosed with schizophrenia all the time. Are they unaliving people? Ed absolutely did not help the authorities catch Ted Bundy. Oh no. He didn't. He didn't help them. I think what they showed Ted Bundy's scene or part because they both had an issue with I can't think of the actual scientific word right now. They both had an issue with having freaky tales with bodies. I'll just put it like that. Both of them had that problem. So if Ted Bundy isn't next, the only thing I can think of is that they like to show a similar SK in the same family in some of the same things that they like to do with their victims. That's the only reason why I would think they would show Ted Bundy. Which honestly, Ted Bundy should have been next because I mean Ted Bundy just had like a huge documentary on Netflix. Why wouldn't you want, you know what I'm saying, to have him be next? And he's still a much known like SK that people still talk about because no one ever thought that he would do something too because he was in law school. Apparently he was charming, handsome to a lot of people. So they didn't think, they couldn't dare to think that he did something like that. Too much misinformation. Yes. And that's the problem. So it just really makes me wonder why they chose Ed Gein. Like if you definitely, in my opinion, when you want to do these type of stories, you want to have so much information, so much factual information that you can't put it all in the series. That to me is the best way to do these type of stories, that you have so much information that you have more truth than the fiction. The fiction just brings things together, bridges gaps, and makes it more entertaining. That's what makes it like an actual scripted series versus a documentary. So yeah, but I don't feel like they had enough. Or, you know what I'm saying? Like they just wanted to have your, yes, thank you. Necrophilia. Thank you, girl. So I was like, I know, but yes, that's what both of them had an issue with. Both allegedly Ed Gein and Ted Bundy. So yeah, so I just feel like they didn't have enough or they didn't care to read certain books that was on him, because a lot of people were also like seeing reviews. They were like, I mean, 90% of this was fiction. This wasn't even what was going on with this man. So that's why I'm just like, well, then what was the point? What was the absolute point to have this actual story? You know, like what was the point? Now, one thing I will say, Miss Jackie from Roseanne, she did a hell of a job for the short time that she was on this. Well, you know, they kind of had her throughout it, but she did a good job playing her role. She did a good job, as well as the lead in for who played Ed. Like the fact that you have to really, really like go into another place when you're playing these type of characters. Because for him to, always kind of use that voice and, I'm saying, the mannerisms, like that is skill. That is definitely skill. And he kept it consistently. Ryan Murphy show seems to always be very, I don't I don't know if that's the case because Ryan Murphy's catalog is huge. I mean, this man has done Glee. He's done the new normal. He has all of the not Reno 911. What's the 911? And then there's like another fire 911. He did Pose. He's had a list of things on his actual like catalog. Here's the thing though. Ryan Murphy is the name. I don't know how involved Ryan Murphy is in the process of these actual seasons and the actual plot, and I don't know how involved he is. You know what I mean? Because, like, for example, Pose wasn't written by him, and this show wasn't written by him, but it's Ryan Murphy whose production is producing it. So that's the thing. So because I know that the things that he's been hands-on about has been pretty good. But I mean, there definitely have been some things lately that made me say, what is going on? What is going on? I really love his like the People versus OJ, and I like the Menendez, I like Dahmer, I liked Halston. There's some things that he definitely, did really, really well, even with the over, I don't know if I can even say that word without getting flagged, but I'm gonna say it, sexualized stuff. Because Halston had that too, but there was purpose in it. There was purpose in every single scene in that caused another effect of drama that ensued in that movie. So I'm all for it if it makes sense. But in this, Ed Gein, it didn't make sense. It just seemed like someone wanted to put it in there for their own reasons and their own purpose, not for the audience to really understand what's the purpose for the story. You know what I mean? That was my issue, because we clearly knew he was sick from the beginning, and so was his mama. And again, this whole situation with his brother, we didn't need that. His brother apparently passed from heart failure or heart disease. Why didn't we get more of a dynamic between him and his brother? And I think also because we don't really know much about him and his family. If they really isolated themselves and they lived on the farm by themselves, especially back in those days, if there weren't any, siblings, like other siblings, like the mother didn't have siblings, the father, whatever the case may be, no one can really take account to the family. But as a writer, he could have made something stick. So then that way we could see a contrast in how the mother was and how one of them was able to get out mentally and the other one wasn't. Could have easily had the brother say, Ed, you're just like her. You got the crazy just like her. You know what I mean? So it definitely, definitely they could have done something to make us really understand, like, wow, like Ed, he never had a chance. He never had a chance with what he probably was born with. Oh, and then another thing, the Adeline situation. Oh yeah, girl, TP, yeah, definitely. Miss T. The Adeline situation with her going to New York. Let's talk about that. And how pretty much she went to New York. They said she was a failure of a photographer, did all of that with Ed just to come back to Plainfield. And she goes home, and her mother, like, that scene was insanity to me. And how her own mother sits up there and says, I tried to unalive you while you was in my belly by going down the stairs multiple times. And I guess my body just protected you, but I think something really happened to you when that happened, and you're an embarrassment. And I was just like, what in the heck is going on here? Like, I was just like, what is this? And then when that happens, that's when she decides to give Ed some nookie, some freaky tales. It was just all over the place. Well, I was just like, who am I supposed to feel for? Who am I supposed to feel for? Who am I supposed to? Because at least in the Dahmer story, I didn't feel for Dahmer, but I felt for them victims. Like, especially there were certain victims where I was just like, oh man, like I was feeling it, like I felt something. Same thing with the Menendez. Hell, I even felt something for them by the end of the story. By the end of the story, when they're both in two different vans and they're going separate directions and they don't see each other and literally 20 plus years are separated, I even felt for them. You know what I'm saying? Like, I felt for them. I didn't know who to feel for in this one. I didn't know who to feel for. By the time I was done, I said, okay, well, I don't know what that purpose was. I don't know who I'm supposed to feel for. My heart wasn't like literally wasn't fluttering, wasn't doing anything. I was just like, I don't know what I just watched. Even the kids scene, I was like, again, I don't know what I'm watching. You know what I mean? And it just seemed like, I don't know, this man wanted to write something that had a little bit of Freddy Krueger, a little bit of, you know what I'm saying, CORN, corn, but y'all know the word that I really want to say. Like, he wanted a mixture of everything. The love interest stuff was very embellished. It did not happen at all. Yeah, at all. Apparently, they say that didn't happen at all. At all. And the problem is that she went from, again, it would have made more sense if she's into forensic science, because I know people like that. I know people who are like into examining bodies and wanting to take pictures or whatever the case may be, that she was into that. But when she saw what he was doing, saying absolutely not, no. But the way that she came back intrigued by it and tried to use it for her career, it was like, what is this? Like the Grim Reaper, Bonnie and Clyde? Like, that's what it was given. Like, the Grim Reaper, Bonnie and Clyde here, doing all of this stuff together. But then naturally, you know what I'm saying, when he gets caught, she wants to play victim and now is using this as an opportunity to get some type of career. Like, it was weird. So yeah, you guys, I didn't like the fact that, to me, the main character got lost. The main character got lost. You had too many other characters in here, too many other plots in here that just completely made this an absolute mess. It just did not have any type of thought-provoking, there was no emotions to me for it, where it was just like, even with people getting unalive, I was just like, well, you made it seem like she wasn't worth nothing anyways, as if, you know what I'm saying, she deserved it, because you're making it seem like she was just throwing it to everyone. And I'm not saying that someone should get unalive for that, but they made it seem like she was just, you know what I'm saying, like this town, you know what I'm saying, slut bucket that no one cared for anyways. Like, which to me, if we would have met her son before we saw her get unalived, it would have made more sense. because I guess the main person I may have had the heartstrings for was her son. But we don't meet her son until after she's unalive in at least an episode or two later. If we would have met her son and her son begging for her to actually make Thanksgiving dinner before she got unalived, and then she got unalived, that would have brought the emotions to say, man, oh my gosh, when he finds out. And then, of course, if we would have saw that beforehand too, we would have put together, oh, that is the police officer that went there with the sheriff to ask questions about Mary. That would have brought the piece together, and that would have brought more emotions, but it didn't happen. It was just like all over the place. All over the place. You know what I'm saying? So it definitely, hey, what's up? It was disturbing to me, the start and the middle. I think they tried to make people feel sorry for him. Yeah. And I wasn't about to do it. Nope. Because you still was an unaliver. And again, people with that condition, there are people with that condition who do not unalive people. But yeah, from what I'm seeing, there are some people who are saying it's great, but some people are saying it's really bad. And I think because of what we have expected with the success that a Ryan Murphy production has given throughout the years, this is an epic fail for me. This is an epic fail. You know what I mean? Because again, this is not a TP production. This is a Ryan Murphy production. This man has been in the business for easily 30 years and has definitely produced hit after hit after hit. And I'm talking about hit after hit after hit, like on broadcast television. This man has had broadcast shows, not just, streaming shows, So, but yeah, I definitely feel like they played the audience, that's for sure. No story, yeah. I'm so glad I got people here who, I'm saying, are understanding what I'm saying. Because for some people, they may not. And that's perfectly fine if you disagree with me. But you guys definitely understanding what I'm saying here. No story was complete, just a mess. Yeah. It did not make sense. And the ordering of it. That's why I said not just the writing, but the directing of it. And the way that they put it in order, it's just like, what am I supposed to focus on? Oh, now we're back here. Wait a minute. Now these people are speaking in German. Why are we over here? Oh, doing now here and now we're over here. And then they sitting up there doing the whole, him making these masks. And then you got the chainsaws. And it was just all over the place. It was all over the place. I think the only thing that made sense was the bait story. Yeah. And that's another thing too. And I do like the sense of him having moments where he thought he was seeing people, like when he thought his brother came from out the barn or whatever the case may be. I do like that. But at the same time, it just, again, I think they were trying to do too much with too little. Too much with too little. Because to me, this maybe would have been better if it was fleshed out over multiple seasons. But overall, I just don't think they had enough story. And they were trying to put the pieces together, and it just didn't work for me. It didn't work for me. You know what I mean? But again, I definitely would like to know what everyone else thinks of it once they watch it, because I know some people haven't watched it yet. These are the women that he allegedly had unalive, but again, based on what we know, he only confessed to two, the Bernice lady and Mary. The babysitter coming into play had nothing to do with it. Now, apparently, allegedly, he was a babysitter growing up or whatever the case may be. But again, we are talking about years, you guys, and I did not see him transition to show that he was aging until he got into the mental hospital. By the time they put him in handcuffs, that man was over 50 years old. Why didn't we see that progression of his age? You know what I mean? Like, when was he apparently going in here talking about he was trying to babysit them kids? How old was he then? A babysitter job, yeah, your teens, maybe your 20s, but you babysitting at 30, 40 something years old? Absolutely not. You know what I mean? So, and getting paid off of it, like, no. So it's definitely, again, they wanted to add that for whatever reason. But yeah, to me, this was their focus right here. Their focus here was talking about Alfred Hitchcock and Psycho, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Silence of the Lamb, and Bates Motel. You guys know that the Bates Motel is definitely based off of Psycho, and pretty much it's they claim they're all connected. But from my understanding, there is no proof or truth into any of them really having a lot of influence with Ed Gein's story. Apparently, allegedly, they don't like, but that's what they're thinking, or that's what they wanted to show, is that all of these people got their influence from Ed Gein. You will have people have empathy for. Make sure you asterisk out that word. Asterisk out that word. We cannot have that whole K word out there. Yeah, adding the German thing didn't need to be added. It didn't, and it took me out of it. It definitely took me out of it. But yeah, so with that being said, you guys, let's continue the conversation. Everything was wrong with this. Like I said, the only thing they got right is the cinematography. But the cinematography, in my opinion, is the easiest thing you can do. But it was just too much of what was real, what wasn't real. That whole scene with, the villain character in Germany, the transsexual topic. Again, I would love someone's take on that. The movies within a movie and all of that. I think they tried to do too much, and it just became a whole freaking stew of BS. So they lost me on this one. Hopefully, the next actual monster, which is, I believe, Lizzie, I don't know what the last name is going to give more, like the first two. But yeah, I was not impressed with this. Still love Ryan Murphy stuff though, so I haven't given up on him, but I was definitely not impressed with this. It would definitely be something that I will not watch ever, 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 ever again. With that being said, you guys, thank you guys so much for listening. Please let me know what you thought about this season. Please like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you on my next video.